Hi, everyone. My name is Jillian Gallimore, and I am so excited to be here for the presentation called Poop. There it is, where we're going to discuss poops and hopefully make them less stinky through some nutrition and some pet care tips. And this is for both cats and dogs, so both are welcome. I will say that I mostly work with cats, so if you if you hear me say something that's just for cats, I do mean it for both cats and dogs. I'll try and catch myself, but I just talk about cats day in and day out. So I'm just used to saying it. It flows off the tongue. So I am the Healthy Feline. That is my business. Like I said, I work with cats, but I am also, I'll get more into this in a little bit, but I am also a nutrition expert for both dogs and cats. But I work with cats for behavior. So they are my species cats, but dogs also come into play with nutrition. So I hope you all enjoy this presentation. I look forward to your questions, and thank you so much to PPG for setting this all up and hosting me. I really appreciate it. Let's get into it. Okay, so this is a little bit about me. I've mentioned my name already. This is just a couple of ways to get in touch with me: my website, my Instagram and Facebook tag, email. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to talk to you further and connect with you further after this. These are my animals: my dog Hawkeye, my cat Izzy in the middle, and Cypress. They have all had their own nutrition journeys and adventures. So I've learned a lot from each and every one of them. They are my babies. I love them very much. Hawkeye will make you'll see him later in the presentation. So he will make uh, a a showing later, a bit later on. So I am a feline behaviorist, a canine and feline nutrition expert. I work in Toronto, Canada, but I offer virtual consultations in North America. If you speak English, I'm your girl. Uh, and I do some in person in the local Toronto area as well. I also work with a local cat rescue called Annex Cat Rescue, where I help socialize our foster animals and help fosters get their cats up for adoption. It's wonderful. I very much enjoy working with Annex Cat Rescue. I am also a foster for them as well. So we're going to get into it. I just want to make a little disclaimer. I am not a vet. I am a nutrition expert. I've done lots of different certifications, one here from CIBT, National Nutrition Certification. I've also had many years talking to pet owners about their animals' nutrition. I've had mentorships and lots of courses around nutrition, but I'm not a vet. So I work with healthy and stable animals. So if you have an animal that's going through a health concern or scare, the person to go to is your vet. And then once they're stable, then of course all of these little tips and tricks that we're going to talk about will apply for sure. So, my passion is the intersection between behavior and nutrition. A lot of nutrition and a lot of things like pickiness have a behavior component to it. So that is my jam, pun intended. So very excited to be here talking to you about this. I'll try and keep it brief and informative and at a good clip. But thank you so much for joining me today. This is going to be fun. Okay. So we're going to learn some things today. Hopefully, this is what I hope you will take away from it. First, understanding the connection between nutrition and behavior and poop. So that's why we're here, right? Poop, there it is. We will leave the subject of poop behind a little bit and talk about weight and muscle mass scoring. And then we'll go back to poop, talk about poop scoring. We're going to talk about the meat, pun intended again, the meat of this presentation is talking about how to distinguish between low and high quality foods. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about reading ingredient lists, and then how to transition onto that new food, some pitfalls and some warnings and things to look out for. And then finally, when to get the vet involved, and also some supplements that you can try out as well. So there aren't a lot of resources out there, and I feel and nutrition is such an important part of our animals' lives. Sometimes the most exciting part of the animal's day is mealtime. Mealtime is bonding time, it can be training time. Honestly, nutrition's such at the heart of everything around our animals. So, uh, I'm so happy that you're here and that you're interested in learning more about nutrition because it really can improve their lives. So, I firmly believe that health starts with nutrition. So, you'll hopefully leave today with a few tips and tricks for your cat and dog to improve their nutrition and honestly, also their poops. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about. This is the contents. We're going to talk about why we're why poop at all, why we're talking about this. We're going to talk about those scoring systems of weight, muscle, and poops. We're going to talk about reading ingredient lists. I have an example as well, how to transition to a new diet, and then when to call a vet and so a few supplements as well. Okay, should mention that this whole presentation has greyhounds and cats. So you're gonna see a lot of greyhounds and a lot of cute cats today. I was in a mood when I made this presentation. So first off, why are we talking about poop at all? So good poops indicate improved nutrition. Poops what you eat is what comes out of you, right? So there's a very close connection between the two. Yes, some hiccups can occur, but again, we're talking about healthy, stable animals. So uh, good nutrition equals good poops. Good poops also means you're probably more open to learning. Your memory is probably a little bit more in tune to learning as well. So you might pick up on things, you might pick up on training a little bit easier when you're feeling good. This is also connected to, or this is because it's connected to gut health. So when our gut health is when our gut is feeling good, our brain is feeling good as well. It fuels learning. So good nutrition fuels learning, and you are more comfortable. So you're probably a little bit more tolerant of, I don't know, loud noises or your cat sibling or your human sibling or whatnot. So you're a little bit, maybe you're more tolerant of touch. Maybe you're more tolerant of those loud noises or the car backfiring or the lightning strikes or whatnot. So when we're feeling good inside, it comes out in these different sorts of behaviors. Good poops mean fewer trips outside. So not that 4 in the morning, oh no, my dog has some tummy problems. He needs to get outside. We've all been there. So fewer of those. Good poops also mean cleaner litter boxes. So that's for cats, right? So cats are relinquished, abandoned, or just not considered as an option for a pet because of the litter box. And if we can keep it clean, we can keep it cleaner, then we're really doing them a favor of getting adopted and having more people who are interested in cats and loving cats and giving them a home. And frequently, litter box issues for cats who have litter box issues, that's usually stems from an unclean box. So if we can help keep it clean, help keep it, when you're going to clean the litter box and you're just like, oh, why do I have to? I have to put like on a hazmat suit. It smells so bad. If we can keep it from that state, we're doing the cat a service because we're going to probably keep it clean more often, and it's also helping us. So it's not so disgusting. So this is our goal. So we want poops to be to have better poop quality, have less of it, less poop volume, happen less frequently, and less smelly. This is our overall goal. If we meet any of these, if we check off any of these, then we are doing well. So it could be that our cat is having less poops, or fewer poops. Sorry, grammar. So they're going once a day rather than 3 times a day. Sometimes that can happen when we're changing their nutrition. How about our dog's poop isn't as smelly when they go? This is all great. This all means good things, and this all happens when we're improving their nutrition. When we go from low quality food to high quality, we're going to see the difference. We're going to see the difference. Okay, so we can't escape poop. It's a reality. It happens, poop, there it is. We can at least make things better for us as humans. And meanwhile, we're making it better for our pets or our pets. They feel good, they feel satiated, their gut feels good, their body feels good, they're learning, they're having fun, they're enjoying every meal, and this means that they are enjoying an improved overall health. So that's our goal. Okay. So, next up, we got some scorings. So this is where we're shifting a little bit away from poops for just a little bit. Um, and we're talking about scoring weight, muscle, and poops. So these are all tools to help you keep track of your animal's progression, not just if you're changing food, but also just throughout their life. So, I'll probably mention it later as well, but a kitten will not need the same as a senior cat, or a puppy won't need the same as even an adult dog. So, throughout their lifestyle and life stages, they're going to go through different metabolic needs, and we got to keep on top of it. So the first one is assessing your body condition. So this is weight. So this is assessing how much fat is on your pet's body, basically. And you can do this really easily. Feel your pet's ribs, and then take your hand, and if you feel, if your pet's ribs feels like the knuckles on a flat hand, then you're perfect. If you flip your hand over and you feel the base of your fingers, if the ribs feel like that, then you're a little chonky. And then if you have a closed fist and you're feeling the knuckles there, that means you're just a little too skinny. So very easy. This does mean that we can determine a body condition on a fluffy animal as well, because we're feeling the ribs. Uh, a really great other option is you're looking at your animal from an aerial view, so from above, and if they have a waist. I do find that it's a little bit more subjective though. So because of those fluffy animals, right? So their fluff is getting in the way. This assessment with the ribs on your hand, I think one, like you can just be petting your animal and then do it, just easy peasy, no big deal. And it also helps with those animals who have a little bit more fluff or whatnot going on. So this is my preferred. If you hear my dog breathing, it's because he's right here. Just a warning. He's just saying hello and helping me through through this. Okay, so that's body condition. Oh, and if you have your animal near you, put it in the chat. What do you think? How did this assessment go? Try it out. Let me know how it goes. I'd love to see how that all plays out. Okay, so now we're putting on an additional layer. So assessing muscle is a little bit harder than assessing body condition. Muscle condition is really important. We tend to forget about muscle condition, and it's honestly a really great indicator of a healthy animal. You will see muscle loss with a cat who has mobility issues. A cat and dog. Oh my God, I did it. A cat and dog, you will see muscle loss with an animal with mobility issues and an animal who is up in years. So if they're a senior or geriatric, they will likely be losing muscle. It's harder for older cats to keep on that protein, to keep on that muscle. So they need to eat more protein in order to maintain their muscle mass. So oh, sorry, my dog. Hopefully you can't hear him too much. But so this is, I find it's a lot, or the easiest way to determine muscles, if you were to pet your animal down their spine and you feel every single vertebrae, then we likely have some muscle loss. So that's an easy indicator. There's lots of other points in the body that you can check out, but I find that that's the easiest. My other really great point in the body that I look for is the thigh. You can see it in this cat where I pointed at the thigh. I mean, this cat's beautiful. It has very good muscle condition, maybe a touch overweight, but very beautiful. With that arrow to the back leg, you can see an indent. And you can see it in the dogs as well. There's usually an arrow to that area as well. And you might find that with animals who have mobility issues, and especially if you see, I call them torpedo shaped. So if an animal's really jacked, really muscular on their front, that usually means that they are overcompensating. So they're using their front limbs to get them through life, whereas their back limbs might have some muscle loss, usually from mobility issues, and you might see that thigh indent. Um, so we're not talking about mobility today, so I'm getting a little off track. But if you do have an animal with that torpedo-shaped body, uh, would recommend seeing your vet, maybe seeing a chiropractor as well, because there might be something going on in the body, and the spine, and the hips, and the shoulders. Anyways, I will leave that for now. That's another topic. So that's muscle condition. Now, layering the two on top of each other, the body condition and the muscle condition, we're going to have an example and enter my dog, Hawkeye. So, this is when I first got him. Literally, not even we got him, we just met him. So this is about 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. So he's a little baby. He's just over 2 years old. Not gonna tell you how old I am, but just to let you know, we're babies. So I've indicated a couple with some arrows here. Some really interesting points. He is 10 pounds underweight. So his body condition is poor. You can see every single vertebrae. You can see his hips, that little nodule on his head. You can see he is underweight. But because he's an ex racing dog, he is just off the track from being trained. So he is really muscular too. So you can see his biceps and triceps and his thighs. Like he is thick. So this is an example of where you can have a poor body condition, but really excellent muscle condition. And so hopefully this shows you how those two layer on top of each other, and can work in conjunction, but also separately. So, anyways, this is my cute dog, Hawkeye. And him, I think I took this maybe a year ago. You can see the difference, right? So you can't see any of the spine. There's He's less muscular here, like his thighs and his biceps are normal looking for greyhound, and he's looking mighty beautiful, if I may say so. So that's Hawkeye. Okay, so we're gonna go back to poops for a little bit. So I just didn't want to show you real pictures of poop. I didn't want to. So I got some cool drawings from you. The links are on the bottom there. So it's really about having smooth, slightly lumpy logs, firm but moist. That's your ideal. And so we can get on the hard side where we're having hard, dry pellets, crumbly. And then on the other side, we're having diarrhea. And there's lots of different like colors and textures, and like soft serve and Tootsie Roll and sloppy and all these words that describe diarrhea. So it's really just a matter of keeping in mind. There is a Purina poop score if you want to get really exact with it. So you can keep track of, level or state, sorry, score 2 is perfect. Score 1, ooh, we're a little hard, and then all the way to 7. So that's the Purina fecal score if you want to check that out. Warning that there are pictures of real poop. So I recommend one person scoops the litter box or walks the dog, and then they check in with the rest of the family, and you can even keep track of it on your phone. Smiley face for good poops, sad face for subpar poops, just so you have a record, especially if you are going to be changing your animal's diets. This is honestly, poop is the number one, we're talking about improving poop, we improve nutrition. And as we're improving nutrition, as we're kind of messing around with nutrition, poop is going to tell us if we're in the right direction or not. So all animals are individual. All animals have their own preference and needs and gut health and stomachs. And what's going to work for one is not going to work for another. Maybe there are some generalizations, but honestly, you have to look at your individual animal. So that's where the poop assessment comes from, or comes into play. We want to keep an eye on our animal's poop, because then we'll know if what we're doing is working. So Also, watch for straining while pooping. Could be an indicator of constipation. So if they're yowling, we'll talk a little bit more about this as well. If they're yowling, if they're taking a while to poop, there's a couple other indicators like zoomies after poops might indicate some constipation or some trouble, or at least some relief that they pooped. And just a note also, frequency of poop and what is normal really depends on your animal as well. I would generally say 1 to 2 times for a cat. And then for dogs, I mean, there's such a wide range of body size. It's really hard to predict, anywhere from 1 to 4 times, depending on the size of the dog. Sometimes more, five, six, really depends on your animal. And then as you improve their nutrition, you will see that likely come down. Okay, like I mentioned, best indicator of nutrition and health of a pet is their poops. So it's a barometer. These poop scores is a barometer to know how your animal is doing, especially when you're changing up their food. Speaking of food, we're gonna do some reading. We're gonna do some ingredient lists now, and we're talking about ingredient lists specifically because the front of the bag is just not a good indicator of a low or high quality diet, or middle of the road, or any sort of indicator of quality. There's a ton of marketing in play. There are regulations, but they're very broad. So we're not going to get into that. But this is why, let's flip the bag over, read the side of the bag or the back of the bag for the ingredient list. It's going to give you a lot more information. It's not going to be perfect. There's still a lot of gaps, but in North America, I found that there's a lot more information. I checked out, I was in the UK, and I checked out their cat food and dog food as well. And there was like no information. So we're quite lucky here. So we're going to talk about commercial kibble and canned foods first. And then I just have a quick slide on commercial raw and cooked foods if there's anyone out there that is doing that as well. I'm assuming the majority of us are kibble and canned food feeders. So what the questions that we're going to ask when we're looking at an ingredient list: what are the top 5 ingredients? And we're going to narrow it down to those top 5, make it a little bit easier on us, so we're not reading the whole like 30 ingredients. Second question is, are they plant sourced? And then, are those meals? So top 5 ingredients, what are plants? What are made from plants? And of those, are they meals? And this is going to indicate to us quality, specifically protein quality. So protein comes from both plants and animals. And when we're talking about cats and dogs, we're looking for high quality protein, of course, because we want to feed our animals well, but high quality protein for our cats and dogs are animal sourced proteins. So both cats and dogs are carnivores. Cats are obligate carnivores. So what that means is there are nutrients that they can only get from animals. Dogs are a little bit more flexible. They're called flexible carnivores. So they are more open to they can get their nutrients from a wider range of ingredients than cats, but they are still considered carnivores. So, versus a horse. High quality protein for a horse is not going to be the same high quality, defined high quality as a dog or a cat. So the more animal source ingredients, the better. So we're striving, we're aiming, this is a goal. It's not going to be perfect. And cost will come into play as well, which we'll talk about a little bit as well. My dog's back. Okay, so if a plant source ingredient is a meal, it's likely the source of the majority of the protein in that diet. And that's because a meal is so concentrated. So it's usually only about 10% moisture. Whereas if it's not a meal, if a particular ingredient is not a meal, and it's, let's say, whole chicken, and we're going to see this actually, that's usually about 80% moisture, which is similar to what you and I eat when we're having a meal. So sorry. Hopefully you couldn't hear that. My dog's just protesting. He wants food. So when we're talking about things that we eat, we're usually talking about 80% moisture. So when something is 10% moisture and it's a meal and it's from a plant, that's going to be your protein source. It's just how it is. So that's why we're going to look for specifically plant meals. And if we can limit the number of plant meals in our ingredient list, that automatically means we're going to be improving the diet because our protein source is going to come from animals. Well, hopefully that makes sense. Happy to answer any questions about that. It can get confusing, but we'll have an example. So with kibble, there will always be a plant source meal. You just can't get away from it. Kibble, in order to be kibble, needs a plant source meal. So you'll be less likely to be able to improve the diet if you're sticking with kibble. So yeah, I think that's okay. So yes, if you find that your dog and cat are having issues, this is why we look at the ingredient list. So if we can look at those five ingredients, and there are 3 plant source meals. Then we look at another brand, another ingredient list, and there's only 2 plant source meals. That's going to be an improvement. So if our animal's having trouble, if, like, they're stinky poops, they're pooping like 5 times a day, they're massive poops that are not formed, and we improve their nutrition by going from 3 plant source meals to 2, that will likely improve their poops. And then there are some other specific ingredients that you can look at. Like, for example, I find dogs have a lot of trouble digesting lentils. So you can do some switching around in that way too. But we're gonna it's a vast topic, so we can't really get into it today. But that's just an example of, you want to look at the ingredients as well. But if we're just kind of doing an overall view, is it plant sourced, and are they meals? Okay. So I'll also just mention that watch for unnamed ingredients, things like poultry fat. So, like, what sort of poultry? Chicken, turkey, duck, geese. Like there's so many different poultries out there. Which is it? And if you have an animal who has a food intolerance or are having trouble, you're gonna be stuck because you won't know how to address it, because you don't know what the actual protein is. You don't know if it's chicken or turkey or geese or duck. So if you look for ingredients that are named, you're likely going to be increasing your quality already. So that's another thing to look out for. At least in Canada, I find that cost also typically indicates quality. So if you're in the $1.50 cans, let's say, for cats, and you bump it up to $2, you'll likely see an improvement in their quality as well. So just a note there. Okay, so we have an example. This is an unnamed diet. We're going to pick on it a little bit, but I won't reveal who it is. So the first 5 ingredients here are highlighted. We have chicken, whole grain wheat, corn gluten meal, powdered cellulose, and chicken fat. Okay, so first, plant source ingredients. We have the whole grain wheat. Not ideal if we're talking about a cat. Not ideal as the second ingredient. Sorry, I'm assuming. So the farther up on the ingredient list, the more of it there is, and they're all in relation to one another. So second ingredient is the second most common ingredient in that diet, whole grain wheat. That's a lot if this is a cat diet. Third ingredient is a corn gluten meal. Okay, we have our meal. So unfortunately, that's where our protein is going to come from. You might be thinking, but there's chicken. Chicken's the number one ingredient. That's good, right? Well, this is where the meal comes in, and the difference of moisture content and concentration. So having chicken, that is 80% moisture. So only 20% of it can be the stuff that that your body or your animal's body is going to use, and not all of that is going to be protein. And then we go to the corn gluten meal, where it's only probably about 10% moisture. So there's so much more of it in a concentrated way that's going to be your protein. So just from those first 3 ingredients really, and then you get into the powdered cellulose, that's another highly concentrated ingredient. Chicken fat's great, nice and yummy, right? And it's labeled too, which is great. Or like the protein is named, which is great. So this is not going to be an ideal diet if your animal is having trouble. If your animal is having those stinky poops, okay, maybe we find something without that corn gluten meal. Maybe we find something that doesn't have that whole grain wheat. So you can kind of hopefully start to see where I'm coming from with improving, but starting with the ingredient list. Okay, really quickly, we're going to talk about commercial raw and cooked foods. Happy to talk more about this if anyone's interested, but just assuming that most people are feeding kibble and canned. But this is really interesting because we're looking for animal source proteins, right? And I talked a lot about moisture. Higher moisture content is going to be better. Keep our animals nice and hydrated. And you get both of those very easily with a raw and cooked diet. You have the moisture content, usually it's 80%, and typically the ingredients are going to be animal sourced. So that's my quick argument for why we're talking about raw and cooked foods. So with raw and cooked or raw foods, you're going to look for meat, bones, and organ. You can't just go to the grocery store and get ground meat. You can't do it. Don't do it. If you've done it, it's okay. This is a judgment-free zone, but you're missing a whole bunch. With dogs, we're looking for 20% veggies and fruits. Cats, we're looking for just a little bit, 3 to 5% veggies and fruits. We still want that fiber and those yummy nutrients and phytonutrients and all that as well. I like to look for a brand that has a protein to fat ratio of 2 to 1. So it's not too fatty. Bone grind, I love it. Like super, super small, like 5 millimeters bone grind. That's ideal. It passes through the system a lot easier and very good for transitioning animals onto it as well. The finer ground the bone is. Synthetics versus whole foods. This is going to be a cost. Really depends on cost, the cost depends on whether you're using synthetics or whole foods. I always prefer whole foods if I can do it. Synthetics, I mean, it's like eating an orange versus having vitamin C as a vitamin. You're going to be missing out a little bit on the synthetics. These are usually very well tested brands and food and ingredient lists, so you likely don't need to worry. But whole foods, I always prefer over synthetics. And I do have 5 tenets of feeding raw and cooked food. The first 2 rotate between 3 to 5 different proteins and add a fish oil. Is not just for raw and cooked; that's for everyone, every animal. Variety is the spice of life, and honestly, fish oil is one of the most beneficial supplements out there for an animal. So definitely add that in if you can. And then fully consumable bones, probiotics, and multivitamins. Those are extras, good to have for sure. Less likely for a cat to be able to do those last 3, just because they sometimes have mouth fixations. But anyways, these are my 5 tenets. If you're feeding a raw and cooked diet and you're doing all 5, A+++++. Okay. How to transition to a new food. So I'm going to have a couple of tips and tricks, and you hopefully have heard some of these, so it's not so new, but these are my kind of go-to ways of transitioning. So we have our food that we're transitioning out of, and we're trying new foods. So I like to start with familiar proteins. So if an animal really likes chicken and they've been on chicken for a while, start with chicken of a different brand or the improved brand or whatnot. Start with a familiar protein. It's less likely to have any sort of stomach upset because the body already knows about that protein. I like to offer the new food in small tastes in a separate dish, so you're not adjusting their regular meal, especially for cats, which we'll get to. They need to be eating every 24 hours. And so having their original diet in a dish already, like in their usual meal, and then adding something on top is really nice. If you're worried about calories, just reduce a little bit of their regular meal. If you're going from kibble to raw and you're interested in raw, I do like going through canned food in order to get there. It's more of a texture thing. So you're introducing canned, which is rich and moist, and hopefully they get into it. They like it and they get into it, and then it's an easier transition to go from canned to raw. So you'll just need that transition with canned food, and then you can do this 75% of the original food, 25% of the new food, and mixing it in, and then go 50-50, and then 25-75 when you're doing the actual change through. Nutritional yeast is one of those magic magic wands, especially with cats. Nutritional yeast is B12, and it really gets the appetite going, gets the mouth drooling. A lot of animals just on canned food are and kibble are vitamin B complex deficient just through the processing. So that's where nutritional yeast comes from. So you can really help transition onto new diet if you just sprinkle it on top. It's really great. Slow and steady always. I'm not a big fan of switching foods cold turkey. You go from one food and then the next day or the next meal you go to another. I'm not a fan of that necessarily if we can avoid it, just because it gives a slow and steady approach gives the body time to adjust. Especially if we're going from a kibble, which is higher in carbs. Sorry, I didn't necessarily want to go into the macronutrients of it all, but I'll just mention quickly, kibble has a lot more carbs than a raw food diet, for example. So the body has to switch from digesting carbs to digesting more and more protein and fat, and that can be hard on the body. So we want to make a nice slow transition. Monitor poops. This is a presentation about poops. We went a little bit away from it, but we're back and monitor the poops, the barometer of how it's all going. If you're having a quote unquote, or if you're trying a quote unquote higher quality diet and the poops are still awful, okay, we haven't addressed the issue. Right. So it could be a ton of things. Your particular animal, what's going on? Maybe they like ate something off the street. Lots of variables, but always monitor the poops. Okay. We're not going to get into all of these factors. They are a lot of different things, like I mentioned, they eat something off the street or whatnot. So many things can go into why an animal isn't transitioning onto new food or why it's difficult. So this is sort of my master list, and I'll just say that, like, if your animal is addicted to sugar, it's going to be harder. Like the carbs and the kibble, it's going to be a little bit harder to transition. So again, slow and steady. Sometimes they're afraid of new foods. They have neophobia. That's very common in cats, or they've never been introduced to a particular food as a puppy or as a kitten. That will make introducing it to them as an adult a lot harder. So anyways, there's a lot going on here. So if you find that you're stuck, of course, at the end, I'll have my email and whatnot, happy to help. But just so you know, so you have an idea of what it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, my cat is picky or my dog is picky. There's so many things that can be influencing what's happening. So anyways, so yes, control your variables as much as possible. It's not just nutrition, it's also behavior. And this is where my passion is, right? Behavior and nutrition, where they intersect. And I would also, if you can, feed in private dining rooms, because they're other pets, that point about other pets, sometimes, especially with dogs, it makes them eat faster because that competition or that resource guarding. But sometimes with cats, especially, it makes them not want to eat. So I'm a big fan of private dining rooms. Sorry, that's just an aside. And a note too, cats need to eat every 24 hours. So if they're not eating, go back to the original diet. Or whatever they will eat, especially if we're messing around with if we're transitioning. Okay, last little bit. So we're talking about supplements and when to call the vet. So this is, again, things that we can do at home versus things that we really need our vet involved. Vets are such an integral part of our pets' lives. They annual vet visits, of course, more vet visits for senior and geriatric animals, having a baseline of blood work and of wellness check is so important. So let's do this. So there are a few ways. We're back to poop now. There's a few ways to to improve poops with supplements. So let's say we've improved the poops already. Or we've improved the nutrition, but maybe we're having some constipation, or we're having a little bit of diarrhea, or just minor. We're at a good place with our nutrition. We're happy, animals feeling good, but you have the occasional little hiccup. So a few things that you can do on your own: add water and add bone broth. Really great way to add in moisture through obviously water and the bone broth. Moisture does usually help. Adding that fish oil that I mentioned. And then I would actually have someone help you dose out a couple of these things. So, it's best to get a professional to help you with this, and whether it's right for your animal. So, there's some herbal products, the stool softeners that are actually from like a human pharmacy, fiber content, increase or decrease, probiotics, slippery elm bark, all of that is best to talk with someone about, just so you get the dosages right. And I mentioned the nutritional yeast as well. That would fall under this as well. So you want to get some help for that. But add water, add fish oil, add some fermented foods. That fermented foods is great. Goat's milk, there's a whole bunch on the market. A fermented goat's milk, so good. Um, Add or reduce bone, add or reduce organ as well if you're feeding a raw diet. So you're adding bone to bulk up the poop, and you're adding organ to soften the poop. So if your animal's having some constipation issues, let's add in some organ meat. If your animal's having a little bit of loose poops, let's add in more bone. So that's just a little tip there that you can all do on your own, but obviously here to help and walk you through any of that. Okay, when do we call the vet? So, like I mentioned at the beginning, your cat and dogs, their metabolism will change throughout their life. So, what was working for them as a kitten or as a puppy won't be the same when they're 6 or 12 or 15. It's just not going to be the same. That's why we have those scorings. That's why we have those measurements, so we can keep track and keep an eye on these things as body fat changes, as muscle condition changes. Uh, so it's a really great way to keep on top of your animal. So you will likely not be feeding the same thing that you were today as you. Oh, sorry, that doesn't make sense. You will likely not be feeding the same thing in 5 years as you would be today. Might be a small change, but likely not. So call your vet if you have any weight or muscle loss or gain, diarrhea or constipation, especially after 2 days of either of those. Absolutely call your vet. Get them involved. Straining to poop, yowling or vocalizing when pooping, zooming or scooting after pooping. Absolutely get your vet involved. Any blood or mucus or a flat side, get to the vet. If your cat is not using the litter box for poop, chances are it's a medical. Chances are. So if you're one of those people, my cat doesn't use the box for poop, get to the vet. And if they're experiencing an abnormal poop cycle, so if they haven't pooped in 5 days, let's get them to the vet. If they haven't pooped in 3 days, let's get them to the vet. What's ever abnormal for them, because prevention is better than reaction. It's going to save you money. It's going to save your pet pain, and the diagnostics needed and the treatment needed will likely be less invasive, less costly, all of that. So if we can prevent, we're doing better. Okay, so we got some big takeaways here. We're going to keep track of your pet's poops. We're going to assess your pet's body condition. We're going to aim for animal sourced ingredients as much as we can. We're going to transition food slowly and thoughtfully, keeping in mind all those different factors and variables. Prevention is always better than reaction when it comes to illness and needs and any sort of clinical signs. So that's when we get to the vet. And that is it. So thank you so much for listening to me go on and on about nutrition and poop. I hope you had fun. I hope there were some good takeaways. I hope it was helpful and that you could use these techniques immediately in your life. Hope they were accessible. Just from Hawkeye and Izzy and Cypress here, my animals again, they have inspired me on this nutrition journey, and they thank you too. This QR code, if you want to hop on a call with me, Zoom call, I would love to hear about your situation and if I can be of service to you. My email's up there. Follow me. Connect. I would love to connect with all of you. And again, thank you so much. Can't wait to hear your questions. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.